Hey there, everybody. Peter here. It's been a busy day. We had the reveal of the Xbox One, and I know that a lot of people have interest in it, whether they really, really dislike the presentation or they're really, really excited for the new box from Microsoft. I just had a few thoughts that I wanted to air out as I'm getting ready to finish up my article for PopZara and um, just some things that are kind of rattling around my mind here as we close out today. The first thing is that I know that a lot of people are upset about the fact that there weren't a lot of games shown. I do understand that. I do understand that what seems to be the target demographic for that first presentation really seemed to be more the core gamer demographic, your Spike TV folks, um, and of course all of the gaming websites covering the event. So I understand some of the disappointment or some people being upset that games didn't seem to be a big deal. What I do want to touch on is the fact that if you listened really close, even though a lot of games weren't shown, excuse me, uh, games were a fair part of the presentation, even if they weren't on the screen or in playable form. The news about 15 exclusives for Xbox One in the first year is pretty significant. The fact that 8 of those 15 games are going to be brand new IPs, one of them being Quantum Break, which, even though there wasn't any gameplay shown, was something that I found interesting. I'm wondering whether the live action video is going to be kind of tied into that or not. That seems like something Remedy could do. I thought that that was okay. And I know that people aren't enamored with the whole Xbox being wider scoped entertainment is very popular, but I think what people are tending to miss is that, excuse me, core gaming is not enough anymore for Microsoft or for Sony to be as big as they were in the last console generation. Video games have expanded beyond that, and consoles have expanded beyond that to where it's more, not to use a phrase that people really are sick of, but it's more a battle for the living room here. And what Microsoft showed me in the reveal is that they're ready to do that. Whether consumers are ready to accept that, ready to accept talking to their TV, rather to accept having a Internet Explorer window open while they're playing a game, or having a Skype window open to make fun of their friends that they just beat or whatever it is. I don't know whether consumers are ready for that, but I think that that's something that people can grow into as time goes on. I think the technology is pretty impressive. I also do think that the games will be coming, even though I will not be in Los Angeles for the Microsoft event. I do think that there will be some pretty formidable games shown there, and I'm very curious to see what EA's partnership is going to be, what their exclusives might be or might not be. And also, I think that the continuation of the Call of Duty partnership between Activision and Microsoft as far as early DLC is a boost for Microsoft and for Xbox One. So I don't think that the presentation was terrible. I know that some people do, and I respect that. But I do caution against knee-jerking a little too hard. I think that we need to wait at least until E3, if not until a little bit later, when more puzzle pieces fall into place before we can really make adequate judgments as to whether the Xbox One is the system for us or not. So I think that's important. That's the first thing. The second thing that I want to touch on before I get back to writing is the fact that I'm very surprised that Microsoft decided to broach some questions about used games functionality and about internet connectivity when there was so much uncertainty as to how those questions should be answered. And once those Pandora's boxes were opened and Phil Harrison made his comments, and then there were other comments made in meetings, and video game websites ran with those, it got out of control pretty quickly. And while I appreciate Larry Herd trying to address the problem and fix it, or at least try and smooth things over until Microsoft can give us more definitive answers, the damage had already been done, at least in the social media sphere, where everyone pretty much just assumes now that Microsoft is against everybody and is out to screw everybody, and we don't really know the truth yet, one way or the other. So I really do caution, and I know that we want to be angry, we want to be upset. We're not happy with the fact that the consumer is kind of being pooped on a little bit here, or at least that's the perception. But until we actually get details, until we actually get truths, until we actually get confirmations from within that we can verify through all channels, I think that it's very important for us to maintain a level of neutrality in this. Okay, this looks like something that it might happen, and that's fine. But until we know one way or the other, making snap judgment calls and saying, well, I'm just going to buy the PS4 because Microsoft doesn't care about the game, or whatever attitude it is you want to have, isn't the right way to go about it. And I think that logic needs to play a role in it, and I think that patience needs to play a role in it, and we need to see what happens at least until after E3. If Microsoft gives us more details and things don't clear up, things don't change, or things stay the same as they are now, where we don't like what we're hearing from Microsoft, then I can totally understand. Well, as a core gamer or as a core gaming consumer, I'm not going to go that route, and I understand. And you're talking to a guy that's not really enamored with any of the new generation consoles, so I'm right there with you. That's why I've built the library that I've built over the last couple of years. But I think we need to maintain a level head. I think that we need to think this through, and I think that we need to say, okay, it doesn't look great, but Microsoft has a chance to fix it and address it. And until they do, and until we get the confirmations that we need, I think that we need to keep our reactions in check. And the last thing I want to touch on, and I thought was very interesting, I'm going to talk about this on my armchair analysis blog a little bit later, is the hit to the hit to GameStop stock this afternoon, which dropped as much as 6% plus before recovering a little bit. I think it closed down just over 5% today after news of the whole used game thing that we really don't know anything about. I think we need to wait, and I think we need to see what direction this is going in before people start pulling their stock out of GameStop or selling their positions or declaring the GameStop model completely dead. I don't think that we know the full story just yet. I think that what we're hearing is a little foreboding and certainly a little worrisome, but I wouldn't go inscribing the gravestone yet and start digging the gravesite. I think that there's a lot that we still need to find out. And conversely, for smaller video game stores, smaller independent video game stores that are not just dealing with last gen and new gen technology and systems and games, I think that there is a wealth of opportunity out there for stores like that. And I'm going to talk about that in another time. If you're carrying Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis, the popular retro consoles, I think that as long as you keep your store small, you don't aggressively expand, and you build some kind of community, I think that there's going to always be a place for those retro consoles, retro games to be able to sell as long as their hardware works. Because video games in general, I don't think that the popularity of video games is declining. I think that there's just a lot of uncertainty and a lot of insecurity about where the industry is going now, and that feeling of maybe a little bit too much greed or a little too anti-consumer. And I think that independent video game stores can really build on that and prosper. Maybe not be absolutely huge where you're talking about aggressive expansion, but I'm talking about where you're able to stay in business even if the used video game market kind of goes away, if Microsoft gets its way, or if Microsoft and Sony decide that they're putting locks on used video games. So don't react too much if GameStop struggles, and that's a big if, because I do think that independent game stores, as long as they have a wider scope of games they're dealing with, I do think that they're going to be around for a little while, and it's not going to be the end-all be-all if Xbox One and PlayStation 4 games used just don't work. So those are my preliminary thoughts. Again, I'm putting, I want to say pen to paper, but I'm really putting fingers to keys and trying to get some articles written. But I wanted to get this out there since I haven't put a video together in a while. Again, I am attending E3 in Los Angeles. I will be there on June 10th at night. And I'll be covering the event for Popzara and doing Twitter updates from there. So until the next time we talk, I hope things are good. Again, try and keep perspective on this whole Xbox One thing, and I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of it in a couple of weeks.